Brad, get another rusting hole comb. This one is a 19, to the best of my knowledge, 23 Mack AB, or it was at least. Been pretty well picked over for parts. It's used for construction, from what I heard. Would have had a fat flatbed on it, I believe. Has these big old solid rubber wheels. These ones you can actually see. It still says Goodrich Deluxe, which is cool. It's this bumper of doom made out of what I believe to be minecart rail. It's not quite big enough to be regular railroad rail. Unfortunately, the engine is not in good shape. It's missing side panel here and here. And of course, it's one of my projects. Someone went and removed that spark plug in the rear one. So of course, it's just packed junk down into the cylinders. And of course, I have no way of removing that. And as a result, locked up. Did, however, get this oil filter to free up. That primitive old, this old catch basin thing. It also has wasps living in it, which I'm not too thrilled about my trying to reclaim it from them. Did get this door free up slide. Of course, it's very deformed, but that's one of the coolest designs for a door I've ever seen. Let's see if the wasp will let me around this side. It had this old flat belt that would have driven the fan, really, it just looks like. And confused about this. I believe this to be the water pump. It connects to the radiator down there. Then it has this tube that ran up to the intake. And it's also looks like it's also connected down here to the updraft tube for the carb, which I don't understand. It would have had an oil or an air filter here strapped to the exhaust manifold, probably to preheat the air gun into the carb. This bent light bracket, and these two big lights up here are both aftermarket. Has a toolbox on the side. Big piston out of something. I don't know what it's out of, but it's big and it's angry. Looks to me like it was probably diesel something. Yeah, read what it says. Very spicy box of tools. This door doesn't open because it's bolted shut. Because that bolt, there's another one there. Run all the way through to the outside for some reason. Would have had cool old Mack badges on it, but those got stolen off. Was originally a cab model, but they just cut her off flush. Over to all the pedals pretty well seized. The gear shift still works. I can find 3 gears. Sure it has more. This is park and brake. It's all seized up. Well, yeah, he's seized. Steering was seized, but I got it freed up. These would have been throttle and timing advance. They're all seized up. Wood wheel rotted off the steering. Giant fuel tank right under the seat. And of course the International Mack logo stamped into the top of the transmission. This is the parking brake drum and these U-joints, the big encased things, like old school grease zerks here on them. Old school grease zerk on the carrier bearing. Big huge Mack double reduction rear end with another International Mack logo on the fill plug for it. This bumper used 2 minecart rails. And to find out when we were loading it, these make very good chain hooks. Also something that survived in the back of the cab. Don't know how well it'll show up on video, but it says Mack. Then legible part of this is do not drill holes in frame. Then use something, I can't make out the rest. There would have been another line above that. Other thing that I found up on the engine is that grease zerk right there, still has grease in it actually, is on the engine mount. The engine mounts in this thing are greasable, and the wasp also kicked me out. Had the Mack badge stolen off this side too. When we dragged it out of the weeds, there was this big old winch sitting back in the fence row, all covered in weeds. This thing dragged off the fence. That either me or the guy selling the thing knew it was there, so I threw him an offer at it, and he sold it to me as well. See, it's trying to spin. This shaft. This is worm drive here up to the shaft, and then over on this side, you can see this is the drum. This is not actually connected to the shaft, but there's these big huge dogs that they are splined into the shaft. Or this whole dog thing is splined to the shaft, so that you would hit this, whatever's connected to that lever, would release the brake and knock the dogs forward, so that, because they're splined to the shaft, they'd be spinning with the shaft, and they'd hook up, drive this. Because presume that to drive it you would need some kind of 2-speed or a gearbox with 2 different directions of travel. Because there's no reverse on this thing. You know, you get forward and you get spinning or not spinning. That's it. That's cool find. Probably going to get on this eventually. I counted the leaf springs in it. There are 14 on each side. There's the old stamping on that you can't even make out. Read somewhere that Mack was one of the first trucks to use the rubber blocking in there to cushion the ride. They're also one of the first to use a drive shaft, direct drive shaft rather than chain drive. Also had the Mack badge stolen off there. Would have been an oval Mack badge. Previous owner said it had a Bulldog radiator cap. That also disappeared, of course. Hoods long gone. Cab and windshield are long gone. Yeah, but it had mount there and there. It has this big, beautiful butterfly hood. And of course, it would have had those continuation of that curve there, up and around for the cab. Although I do know where there is another AB with a cab sitting, so there's a possibility that I can get measurements off of that to recreate the rest of this cab. Yeah, this was a horn bracket. That's gone, of course. But surprisingly, these pedals do not show much wear. You can still see the tread in there. Big, huge gearbox there. The major shame that it got left with spark plugs out. I'll try to pull those plugs out to get into the cylinders. Hopefully free them up more. This is so old that cylinder jugs and the cylinder head are one solid piece that do not separate. So hopefully I'll be able to free it up somehow. Unfortunately, like Speedy, it's more of a parts truck than it is a project truck, but I'm stubborn, so here we are. Biggest trouble about getting this engine to run would be the fact that those two side panels are missing. You know, everything else can probably fairly easily be found, or reproduced. Those were a combination of cast metal and stamped tin, I believe, so those are that kind of thing is very, very hard to replicate. Someone ripped off the drain and renew oil every 500 miles tag. Still does have the magneto though. There's this oil line that would have fed something. Maybe the bottom of the filter? No. I don't know what this is fed. Oh, I do know what that would have fed. That would have gone up here. That was the oil pressure gauge. Somebody removed the dashboard and all the gauges. Oh, this is where she's gonna sit until I can get room in the space for it. Or room in the shop for it. Probably going to do another video of trying to get those plugs out of the cylinders and get penetrating oil down them. Just general other things to do to prep her to get to sit for a while. And I'll let the wasps have their space. That's why I threw this over the cylinder, over the engine, so it could hopefully deter the wasp from going up to the operator's station while I was moving it. I actually do have a name picked out for this thing that I don't know if anyone will recognize or not, but it's a possibility given that most of my viewers are older. His name is Richard the Deep Breather. Really have to wonder if anyone watching will know what that's even from. I think those are all rivets for the lining inside of that. Didn't really need another project. This is just too cool to pass up. Thanks for watching.